There's a dream that's been sold to Americans for generations. Work hard, buy a house, raise a family, retire in peace. Simple, right? But somewhere along the way, that dream turned into a lie. And if you're feeling like the system is rigged against you, you're not crazy. It is. Today we are exposing the death of American capitalism and why the game was designed for you to lose. Let us start with a story. Imagine you are a cobbler in the 1800s. You make leather boots by hand. You buy the leather, cut it, stitch it, and sell them. You set your own prices. You keep your profits. If you are skilled and work hard, you can support yourself, maybe even your family. That is capitalism in its purest form. You own your labor. You own your product. You control your destiny. But then someone has a bigger idea. What if instead of one person making one pair of boots, you built a factory? Hired 10 people. One designs, one cuts, one stitches. None of them need years of training because each job is simple. With an assembly line, you make boots faster, sell more, and everyone wins. At least that's the theory. The factory owner, the capitalist, puts up the money. He takes the biggest cut. The workers get paid less than the solo cobbler ever did, but they have stability. They don't worry about finding customers or buying materials. They just show up, do the work, get paid, and in theory, if the owner gets greedy, if he pays too little or the working conditions are terrible, the workers can leave. They can go work for a competitor. That's the free market. Competition keeps everyone honest. For a while, this system actually worked. After World War II, America became the capitalist paradise. Middle-class prosperity grew, and factories were booming. Women entered the workforce. Suddenly, there were more workers and more consumers than ever before. You could graduate high school, get a factory job, buy a house, raise a family, and retire with a pension. The American dream wasn't just a dream, it was real. But then something changed. In the 1970s and the 1980s, American companies realized something. They could make a lot more money by moving their factories overseas. Why pay American workers $20 an hour when you could pay workers in China or Mexico $2 an hour? So they did. Factories closed. Jobs disappeared. Entire towns built around manufacturing collapsed overnight. And here's the thing. The products did not get cheaper. Companies were paying workers less, but they were still charging Americans the same prices, sometimes even more. The profits did not go to workers. They went to shareholders. They went to executives. They went to the top. And that is when the cracks started to show. By the time COVID-19 hit, the entire system was hanging by a thread. Supply chains collapsed. Prices skyrocketed, inflation spiraled out of control, and while millions of Americans were losing their jobs and struggling to pay rent, the billionaire class got richer. Between March 2020 and October 2021, U.S. billionaires added over $2 trillion to their combined wealth. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg saw their fortunes grow by more than 100%, while the rest of the country was falling apart. Let that sink in. During the worst economic crisis in decades, the richest people in America doubled their wealth. So what does this look like for the average person? Let's talk about housing. In the 1970s, you could buy a house on a single income. A factory worker could afford a mortgage, support a family, and still have money left over. Today, the average age of a first-time home buyer is 38 years old. That's 10 years older than it used to be, and even then, most people cannot afford it. If you make $75,000 a year, which is above the national average, only 1 in 5 homes is affordable for you. If you make $50,000, you can afford less than 9% of homes on the market, and it's getting worse. In 2024, homelessness in the United States rose 18%. That's nearly 800,000 people sleeping on the streets or in their cars. 150,000 of them are children. The house with the white picket fence? For most Americans, it does not exist anymore. But let's say you are one of the lucky ones. Let's say you manage to buy a house, get a decent job, start a family. You think you are safe. You are not. Childcare costs average $1,000 per month per child. In some states, it is $2,000. That is more than most people's rent. And that is just for one kid. Education was supposed to be the great equalizer. Go to college, get a degree, get a good job. That was the deal. But now, the average American is drowning in $90,000 of debt. Credit cards, car loans, student loans, mortgages. It is crushing people, and wages have not kept up. Most people are working harder than ever and barely surviving. Teachers, the people who are supposed to educate the next generation, are making less money today than they did 10 years ago when you adjust for inflation. The people shaping the future cannot even afford to live in it. Retirement? Forget about it. 1 in 5 Americans over 65 is still working. Not because they want to, but because they have to. Half of all women and nearly half of all men between 55 and 66 have zero retirement savings. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos flew 90 private jets to his second wedding. Here is the truth. We have been here before. In the 1920s, America was booming. The stock market was soaring. The rich were getting richer. Everything looked great. But behind the scenes, workers were struggling. Wages were low. Prices were high. And companies were producing more goods than people could afford to buy. In 1929, the entire system collapsed. The stock market crashed. Banks failed. The Great Depression began. What saved America was the New Deal. The government stepped in, created jobs, regulated banks, and built social safety nets. For the first time, workers had real protections, minimum wage, unions, and Social Security. And it worked. For decades, capitalism actually delivered on its promises. The middle class thrived. Families could afford homes, people could retire. But over time, corporations found ways around it. They lobbied politicians to weaken labor laws. They moved jobs overseas to avoid paying fair wages. They turned full-time employees into gig workers to avoid giving benefits. Uber, DoorDash, Airbnb, these are not jobs. They are gigs, no health insurance, no retirement, no protections. Just work until you cannot anymore. And the kicker? In 2024, corporations spent $4.4 billion on lobbying. That's billion with a B. They are paying politicians to keep the system rigged in their favor. When competition threatens them, they destroy it. Amazon kills small businesses. Google dominates search. Ticketmaster controls live events. These companies do not compete. They crush. And it is getting worse. Right now, these corporations are investing billions into artificial intelligence, not to make your life easier, but to replace you. So what happens next? Honestly, it's hard to say. But if history is any guide, we're heading toward a breaking point. Either the system collapses under its own weight, or people demand change. Real change. Not politicians promising to bring back jobs while taking corporate donations. Not tax cuts for billionaires while workers struggle to survive. The American dream isn't dead because people stopped working hard. It's dead because the game is rigged. And the sooner we realize that, the sooner we can do something about it.